And thank you for your suggestions, colleagues. I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Nikolay Artemenko, who's speaking on behalf of the youth delegates who have worked together on their contribution to this debate. So often we think that young people are only interested in having their say on youth policy. And yet, they are concerned by the same issues facing society as everyone else. In the fight against radicalization and violent extremism, young people have a crucial role to play, working with their peers on grassroots initiatives to counter these threats. The Council of Europe's No Hate Speech campaign, which has been run by young people and their organizations, is addressing the need to combat online hate speech in all its forms. Cyberbullying and cyber hate, racism and other forms of discrimination. Mr. Artemenko, you have the floor for 10 minutes. And we, the older generation, the adults, will be happy to listen to the younger ones who represent the future.
Dear President, dear delegates, first of all, on behalf of all youth delegates, I would like to say thank you to the Council of Europe for an opportunity to be here, to participate in a Congress session, and even to speak. In light of the guidelines for local and regional authorities on preventing radicalization and manifestations of hate on the grassroots level, it's important to formulate a stance on behalf of European youth. Taking into regard the youth as a subject of common consideration of being prone toward radicalism and manifestation of hate, it's vital to underline the relevance of youth itself in designing the policies and act upon the fatal letter. Given the increase in recent reflections of radicalization and hate manifestations in Europe and the world, we are addressing this to the Congress in order to emphasize the role of youth in preventing the radicalization and manifestation of hate, by also highlighting the importance of respecting the human rights during the fight against this. Youth organizations and networks are powerful platforms which can serve as bridges of communication between different communities and certainly as tools of better human rights, education and culture, and preventing the problems of radicalization in grassroots level. Means such a peer-to-peer education, leading by good example, formal and non-formal education, have proven effective in a short and long-term addressing of current issues. This can be supported by giving more legal and political space to youth NGOs who work locally. The increase in number of these organizations reflects an integration of all groups in a community, which is practically one way of fighting birth of radicalism. We often see that youth is the main portal for early social inclusion and the communication channel for successful intercultural exchanges. Given these structures, youth can also serve as a co-designers of policies that affect education and curriculums in order to tackle education in an early age. Great examples came from many of Council of Europe states like Norway, Finland, the Netherlands, such as the concept of living library, for example, where youth representatives of groups of different beliefs get time together to exchange views and gain knowledge about fellow youngsters from other backgrounds. These educative prospects coming from youth to youth can have a great impact on the long term and the local level. Starting from our own communities, we can all initiate change from one individual, something which can multiply easily by good example and make a change for European youth and people. Awareness raising that address human rights and radicalization, organized by youth, can have a greater impact among youth, since we can easily identify with each other and effective ways of reaching results via different means, which include formal and non-formal education. Human rights education, which includes freedom of speech as a fundamental right should be part of European Dimensions campaign that addresses all people from an early age, which introduce the culture of respecting human rights as a common European value. As youth delegates in the Congress, we also concluded that it's crucially to sensitively consider terms and identification tags for groups that are subject of radicalism and hate manifestations, to prevent a general sense of subjectivism toward topic and groups and inadequate perceptions by others. In these terms, it's important to separate freedom of speech from responsibility of speech and bear in mind the effects of what one says that can affect a group of people. We also believe that a specific operational European body with a concrete jurisdiction upon building recommendations regarding radicalization, hate manifestation would be very effective in improving the Council of Europe work in this field. We call to the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe and appropriate European institutions to start a monitoring campaign aiming to identify the internal and external factors of radicalization in Europe, guidelines that will help to prevent it. We invite the governments of the member states of the Council of Europe to organize regular activities with formal and non-formal education methods in schools with youth from different communities aiming to create mutual cultural, traditional and social empathy. We call for appropriate fund allocation for the implementation of youth projects that address solidarity and integration in communities. We call for the local and regional authorities to cooperate with each other to overcome the common problems, easily using the exciting tools and instruments such as twinning projects, cross-border cooperations, etc. We invoke the local governments to provide support structures to local cultural and youth organizations for implementations of the projects aiming to foster mutual understanding and creating solidarity. We call upon to appreciate authorities of the member states of the Council of Europe to run educational projects for the institutional workers of the Convention and Charter of Human Rights, aiming to respect the human rights during the fighting activities against radicalization. We call for the local regional authorities, the appropriate human rights institution as well as the Council of Europe to create a database by collecting the best practices of the prevention of radicalism and the integration of migrants into society. We invite the local and regional authorities to share good practices on released issues with interested groups and actors. We encourage the authorities of the member states of the Council of Europe to carefully consider addressing radicalism and hate manifestation by the sole means of respecting human rights of all affected groups and to actively include youth in all efforts. And in conclusion, I want to say that it should be clear that youth is a solution, it's not a problem. Thank you. Спасибо.
Merci. Merci, Nikolay.